Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I wanted to talk about the 25 minutes of vacuous drivel that passed for Liz Truss's leader's speech at the Conservative Party conference last week. I should warn you that during the course of this video I am likely to be just a little bit rude to her and some of her colleagues. Before I start though, could I just thank everyone who was kind enough to buy a copy of my little book last week. It's a little book it's a satirical look at Brexit and the history of Brexit and its consequences. It is available. My website is ml44.com. So Liz gave her first and probably last speech as leader and Prime Minister, leader of the Conservatives at the conference last week. And I want to just go through and I want to just quote some of the things she said and perhaps comment on some of them. She started with a lot of nonsense about herself and her background, stuff that we've all heard before. It's also tedious and boring. But she then went on to say as follows, I want to live in a country where hard work is rewarded. To deliver this, we need to get Britain moving. We cannot have any more drift and delay at this vital time. That's the drift and delay that we've had for the last 12 years whilst the Tories have been in power. She says, low growth isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. Low growth means lower wages, fewer opportunities and less money to spend on the things that make life better. We need to grow the pie so that everyone gets a bigger slice. That is why I'm determined to take a new approach and break us out of this high-tax, low-growth cycle. That's the one that the Tories have brought about, presided over. And that is what our plan is about. It is about getting the economy growing and rebuilding Britain through reform. There is no plan here. There's no policy, no nothing here. It's just wishy-washy drivel. The scale of this challenge is immense. That is why in Britain we need to do things differently. We need to step up. I'm not sure if we're stepping up to the plate or just stepping up. Anyway, we need to step up. As the last few weeks have shown, it will be difficult. The last few weeks have shown that it's going to be difficult if you've got a Chancellor of the Exchequer who thinks he's the cleverest man in the world, but in fact is a complete and utter idiot, who sacks his senior civil servant and then puts forward legislation which effectively collapses the economy and the economy has to be bailed out. And as a result, as a consequence, everybody is paying higher interest rates on the mortgages and so on. Yes, in those cases, it is going to be very, very difficult. Whenever there is change, there is disruption. Yes, indeed, as Kwasi showed us last week. Not everyone will be in favour of change, but everyone will benefit from the result: a growing economy and a better future. Then she comes on to use, it's a really, I don't know who her speechwriter is, but this is a really interesting line here. It's terribly original. I have three priorities for our economy: growth, growth and growth. Exactly the same words used by Starmer in July just 3 months ago. Growth means more money in people's pockets. It means businesses creating jobs. Growth means people can feel secure and they can plan for their future. Fundamentally, growth helps people fulfill their hopes and their dreams. You see, all you need is growth, and that's it. Bob's your uncle, we're all sorted. Then she goes on about tax. She says, the Conservative Party will always be the party of low taxes. We need to be internationally competitive, with all our tax rates attracting the best talent. Cutting taxes helps us face this global economic crisis, putting up a sign that Britain is open for business. You see, the whole world's looking at us now. After Kwasi's intervention last week or week before, yeah, the whole world's saying, oh, that's where I want to go and set up a business. Oh, yes. Now, she was an accountant when she left university. She became an accountant at Shell. I think it was her first job. And as an accountant, she says, I remember my shock opening my first paycheck to see how much money the taxman had taken out. You see, it came as a shock to her as an accountant working in a big company that they take tax. Then she says, we will drive economic reforms to build our country for a new era. We are taking a new approach based on what has worked before. Oh, that's good. Previously, we faced barriers to growth like militant unions, nationalised industries, and outdated city regulations. That's all sorted, I presume, is it? Because we don't face them. Previously, we faced these. So the unions are all sorted out. The nationalised industries, well, we're nationalising the railways, aren't we? All part of them. Now we must break down the barriers to growth built up in our system over decades. I wonder why the Tories didn't think of this before. I don't know. We could have been growing all this last 12 years instead of not growing. We will face down the separatists who threaten to pull apart our precious union, our family. Now, we're not having any trouble with the Scots or the Northern Irish. Oh no, face them down. Then she goes on about Brexit. And we are seizing the newfound freedoms outside the European Union. We are the party who got Brexit done, and we will realise on the promise of Brexit. We are building an economy which makes the most of the huge opportunities Brexit offers. Huge opportunities. She was a Foreign Trade Secretary, wasn't she, for quite a lot of the last 18 months, and she went all over the world, getting lots and lots of photographs for Instagram, and came back with 2 miserable deals, one with Australia and one with New Zealand. That's those are some of the benefits we've got so far, the opportunities. The other opportunities, well, we had to have a minister, the ridiculous Rees-Mogg, who was the minister for finding Brexit opportunities. This is about 5 years after the referendum. Two of the opportunities he found was one that we can make more powerful vacuum cleaners. Now that seems a huge. I mean, that's going to be transformational. The only trouble is that although we can make more powerful vacuum cleaners, if we want to sell them to the EU, we won't be allowed to. And the other benefit he found, which this is a significant benefit, he realised that inside the Dartford Tunnel, the signs to the exit, should you break down or whatever, were written in feet and inches or yards or whatever. They were written in meters. Sorry. And he thought it would be better if we could change that to yards. And I can see this. I mean, you can imagine, for example, if someone's driving through the Dartford Tunnel and maybe there's a crash in front of a car on fire and so on. You get out of your car wanting to escape. You look at the wall and you suddenly find it's written in meters. I mean, you just, well, what would you do? You'd panic, wouldn't you? So that's the other big advantage that he found. So there are advantages, and she's obviously an opportunity. She's obviously focusing on them. She says also, by the end of next year, all EU-inspired red tape will be history. EU-inspired, you see, this inspiration is the inspiration of civil servants working in Brussels who've been bossing us around, telling us what to do for the last 45 years, which is why we've been doing so badly as members of the EU, why we had to leave to get away from this EU-inspired red tape. The only problem is that all this EU-inspired red tape is applied by the EU, and so it'd be very difficult for her to make it all history. You see, if you send a lorry load of goods over to the EU and the goods turn up, and they say, well, where are your documents and so on? Where's all your import declarations and so on? You say, well, our Prime Minister swept that all away. It isn't going to work, I don't think. So she can sweep away whatever she likes in terms of red tape in this country, which is not the big problem, but she will have a job, I think, in Europe. Instead, we will ensure regulation is pro-business and pro-growth. Leaving the EU gives us the chance to do things differently. Oh, yes, we're doing things much more differently now. And we need more of that. Not sure about that, Liz. Economic growth will mean that we can afford great public services such as schools, police and the NHS. We have all this money with this growth that's going to come when she's done away with the EU regulations and so on. Our fantastic Deputy Prime Minister and Health Secretary will deliver for patients so they can expect to see a GP within 2 weeks. Used to be 2 days. And she will get ambulances out there faster, and she will improve A&E, and she will bust the COVID backlog. You see, at the moment, there are all these ambulances all queuing up, and very often they can't unload their patients because the hospitals are full, because there's nowhere to send the people who are in hospital, because the care industry is falling to pieces. But she's going to sort all that out. I don't know what she's going to do, but just shout at them. But that's not all. She's going to bolster social care so everyone gets the care they need. That'll be nice. It's going to cost many, 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 many billions. Because as we know at the moment, care homes are all collapsing, or a lot of them are collapsing. A lot of them can't get staff because of, we don't want those awful EU people coming working here. So a lot of them are in trouble anyway, but she's going to sort all that out. She's our Theresa. When she's not being Deputy Prime Minister, have you thought about this? If anything happened to Truss, she'd take over as Prime Minister. Can you imagine? Theresa, the cage fighter. We are working to put this country on the path to long-term success. Isn't that nice? We're also taking decisive action by strengthening our borders, by beefing up our border force and expanding the Rwanda scheme. Our brilliant new Home Secretary will be bringing forward legislation to make sure that no European judge can overrule us. We're going to leave the European Court of Human Rights. Let me just say something about Braverman, because, I said a lot of rude things about Priti Patel, who I consider to be one of the nastiest, most unpleasant women ever to sit around a cabinet table. I mean, a truly, truly horrible woman, a woman who seems to hate everybody. In particular, she hated anybody coming to this country in the way that her parents had done. And I didn't think that it would be possible to have anybody more unpleasant than Patel. But Braverman seems to be that person. She seems to be even more objectionable. And it's quite interesting. I mean, Braverman's parents came from, I think her mother from Kenya and her father from Mauritius. They're both Indians. And in the case of Patel, her parents both came from Kenya. Sorry, from Uganda. Incidentally, they were not deported by Idi Amin. They left about 4 years before. So they came to this country and they did quite well. And they've done well, and their daughters have both done well. And they've ended up as Home Secretaries. And yet, despite their parents they didn't have to come illegally. They didn't have to come. They just came here and took advantage of all the benefits and so on. But these two women, Patel and Braverman, have this passionate hatred of anybody else who wants to enjoy the same benefits in any way. And this utterly vile woman, Braverman, said at the conference, she said, it is her dream and obsession to see on the front of the Daily Telegraph picture of a flight taking asylum seekers to Rwanda. That is her dream and her obsession. Just think about how terrible it is if you're one of those asylum seekers. You come from maybe Afghanistan, you might come from Eritrea, you might come from one of these terrible countries, your life might well be in danger, and you've borrowed money and your family's in debt for you to get here. You've gone through this tortuous journey because there is no other route. There is no legal route. It is impossible to come here unless you're what they call the brightest of the best. It's impossible as an ordinary person to come and live and work in this country. And so you pay all this money, you take all this risk, you go across the channel, you get here, and so on. And she wants to put you on a plane to Africa. It's her dream, her obsession, to put you on a plane to Africa, where you'll land up in a country in the middle of Africa, not a particularly pleasant country by the sounds of it, where you'll be able to apply for asylum, but not asylum in the UK. Oh no, asylum in Rwanda. So somebody from Afghanistan, from Eritrea, from wherever, is suddenly going to find themselves stuck in Rwanda. And that's what she wants. And you just think how vile can anybody, how unpleasant, how vindictive, how bitter and sadistic can anybody be when they themselves have benefited, or their parents have benefited from coming to this country. Truly, truly extraordinary. She also said, incidentally, I mean, she's bringing in legislation now to make it even more difficult to demonstrate, make it virtually impossible to demonstrate, giving the police enormous powers, turn this into a police state. She said, this is a direct quote, protesters are a mob who need to be stopped. So whatever you're protesting about, peaceful protesting, you're a mob and you need to be stopped. That's our Home Secretary under this pathetic idiot Truss. She then goes on, Truss, she says, we need an economically sound and secure United Kingdom, and that will mean challenging those who try to stop growth. I will not allow the anti-growth coalition to hold us back. You see, I think they've gone along to some sort of kindergarten somewhere and said to the children, now listen, think up a little 3-word phrase, which will just catch in people's minds, and everybody will talk about it. It'll be. It doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to have an iota of truth in it. Just one of those things that will stick, and we'll keep repeating it, and we'll all repeat it. All the ministers will repeat it endlessly until it lodges in the psyche, like taking back control, get Brexit done, and levelling up, and all these other things. And so they've come up with this anti-growth coalition. And who's in the anti-growth coalition? These are people, anti-growth means you don't want to grow. You want your economy to stay the same or to get smaller. You want to get poorer. You just want everything to get worse and worse and worse. That is anti-growth. The people who are involved in this are Labour, the Liberal Democrats, the SNP, the militant unions, the vested interests dress up as think tanks, talking heads, Brexit deniers, and Extinction Rebellion. I mean, that's the majority of the country. That is the majority. The Conservative Party, anyway, you look at the polls, they're shrinking their support. And everybody else is anti-growth. We're all being labelled as anti-growth. We all want to be poorer, except Liz and the Tories, who are going to grow. The talking heads, the Brexit deniers, and Extinction Rebellion. From broadcast to podcast, they peddle the same old answers. We see the anti-growth coalition at work across the country. The anti-growth coalition just doesn't get it. This is because they don't face the same challenges as normal working people. They are normal working people, the people you're accusing of being anti-growth. They're the majority of the country because you've lobbed the majority of the country as, or you've labelled them as anti-growth. They don't face the same challenges as normal working people. They're not normal working people. People who belong to the Labour Party, people who belong to the Liberal Party, people who belong to the SDP, they're not normal working people. No. They're just people who want to destroy the economy. They want it to grow. These enemies of enterprise, you see, that's what they are. The enemies of enterprise. All these people. They don't know the frustration you feel to see your road blocked by protesters or the trains off due to a strike. I mean, this is so far off the scale. It is so utterly loony. She says, in fact, their friends on the hard left tend to be the ones behind the disruption. The woman's bonkers. So then she goes on to does what she's going to do with this huge economic success is going to come through growth, and growth. We will build roads, rail, energy and broadband quicker. Don't know why they haven't done that the last 12 years. They had plenty of opportunities to do all this quicker over the last 12 years, but no, they're going to do it now. We will be proudly pro-growth, pro-aspiration and pro-enterprise. My friends, we are focused on boosting growth and opportunity across our country. The mission will be difficult, but it is necessary. We are the only party with a clear plan to get Britain moving. See, nobody has got a clue. Starmer got no idea how to get the move, how to improve the economy. No idea whatsoever. We are the only party with a determination to deliver. Together we can unleash, I thought it's a turbocharge, but anyway, to unleash the full potential of our great country. That is how we will build a new Britain for a new era. I mean, have you ever heard such garbage? I mean, it's an insult to the intelligence of anybody. And, it wasn't that much criticised in the press. And, of course, all her followers, all the old folk who were in the hall listening to her, of course, they were all clapping like mad and all going crazy and giving her standing ovations, especially, I think, about the Rwanda business. And the funny thing of all was, the most comical thing, I think, was that she obviously thought she was doing well. You could see throughout the speech she was really, really pleased with herself. And I'm taking them along with me, and they're all believing me. Yes, aren't I doing well? And I saw people leaving. Actually, they were interviewing one or two people, and they asked one guy. They said, "What do you think?" And he said, fantastic speech." She said, "It's the growth." She said, I'm glad she's going for growth." I mean, how can you be so stupid and still manage to stand up? I mean. Well, anyway, the majority of the country are now part of the anti-growth coalition who don't want growth. And I thought, just to put this into context, this is at a time when we've got food banks. We've got thousands and thousands of people relying on food banks, more food banks than there are McDonald's apparently. People are putting up or trying to arrange warm centres for the winter for people who are not going to be able to afford heating at home. We're told we're going to have power cuts. We've got, consumer confidence and business confidence is the lowest it's ever been. We've got nationwide strikes. We've got the railwaymen gone on strike, the postal workers gone on strike, the nurses are voting to go on strike or whether or not they're going to go on strike and so on. We've got rampant inflation, prices shooting up, so everybody's worried about whether they can afford anything. We've got soaring interest rates and mortgage rates, helped a lot by our friend Kwasi. Every possibility this will end up in a housing crash. We've got a shortage of workers because of Brexit. We've got a terrific shortage of workers. This is something I've talked about before, and I'll talk about again, no doubt, at some time in the future. They're going to be. We are an ageing population. We need immigrants to do the jobs that need doing, and we all know what they are. We've got the government now sort of quietly advertising in third world countries to try and get nurses and doctors to make up for the ones that have all gone home because they were members of the EU, and we don't want those awful EU people soiling our country. Exports are down and are much more difficult for a small business or a medium-sized business. It's virtually impossible to export to the EU anymore. We've got massive spending cuts, government spending cuts, which are going to be absolutely inevitable. And as far as foreign investments are concerned, foreign investment now is lower than it's been for years and years and years. And it seems extremely unlikely that any foreign firm is going to come here, any Japanese, Chinese or American firm is going to come and say, oh, let's go and set up in the EU, in the UK. They're not going to come. Nobody's going to invest in the UK when it's going down the pan. And people will come and buy in the UK, but they'll come and buy up distressed assets. They're going to go swoop in and snap up whatever's worth snapping up. But in the last week or so, two of the three major credit assessment companies, that's Standard & Poor's and Fitch, who rate countries according to their credit status and so on, have both moved us from being stable to being negative. So they are the experts, and they are the people who really should know the state of our economy. And so based on that catalogue of problems that we're facing, dire problems, and all the stress and all the loss that people are going to incur and the homelessness that's going to happen and so on, we have this clown of a woman, this absolute idiot, this dim-witted, useless woman telling us she's going to transform the economy by growing it. Growth, growth, growth. It's pathetic. It's an insult to a child. Anyway, that's what I think about it. If I could just remind you once more, if you're interested in my little book, as I say, it's a satirical look at Brexit and the consequences. And if you're interested, the website is ml44.com. If you haven't already subscribed, I'd really appreciate it if you would do so. And if you've watched this far, thank you very much. And until next time, bye for now.